Hi, today I am going over the Flagstaff Crest 39-mile put on by Running, uh, year 2025. So it was just this past weekend, May 9th, 2025. I came in fourth overall female of the race, and which was incredible. I had such a great day. My name is Sarah. Sarah June. I am the CEO and head coach of June Coaching Company, where we help you find out what your body is capable of, whether that be, the shorter distances, anything under a marathon, anything over a marathon, ultra marathoning. That's what our jam is. So today on this video, though, this is going to be just strictly going over Flagstaff Crest 39, my personal race experience, my recap of the race. I'm going to walk you through from the morning of all the way through the end of the race, and a little bit into the recovery. So it's about 3 days after the race. So I'm recording this on Sunday. So it's 3 days after the race, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling strong. But I'll kind of walk you through the entire thing with how I decided to pace myself, what fuel I used, what the electrolytes I was going to take in, all of the details. So we're going to just dive right in. So race morning, day of, I woke up. I would say, okay, race start was at 7 a.m. I was staying at my sister-in-law's house, about 15 minutes away from the race start at Fort Tuthill. So I knew I didn't have a far drive to go. So I woke up at around 4:45, drank coffee. So for me, I always drink coffee and I sit and I read and I, just wake myself up that way. And that's the way I love waking up, energizing myself. And then I got out my laptop and I started looking at my pace chart. So if you see here to the left, if you're listening to this and you don't have a visual on your screen, I have my Ultra Pacer on the screen. So it breaks down. So what you do with Ultra Pacer is you create a login information. So you have an account. I think it is a paid subscription. I pay for the coaching subscription, but I think you can go in there and you can do something. Maybe it's free. I'm not exactly sure, but well worth it. So I downloaded the GPSX file from Aravaipa into Ultra Pacer, and then it kind of breaks it down. So you get a map, you get the elevation change, and what the altitude is throughout the race. So I had to go in and put in the aid stations themselves, because some of the GPX files has it, some don't. So you might have to go in and do some research, and you manually have to put in some GPX files or some aid stations into the file itself. I will be going through a different video of like how I do this and how I do my pace charts and how I do the planning aspect. But at this one, I'm just gonna, this is what it is for this one. So I had this up on my screen and I just made sure I was following along with my planning. So in each of one of these, there is, let me move this to the side. So in each one of these, there's a place to add your notes. And so I made a note of everything that I was going to have on my pack or on my body at the start of the race. So I just made sure that I had all of my things ready to go for race day. Or race morning, bring it to the aid stations, bring it to the start line. I had to have there's one drop bag in this race, and that was at mile 22.8 at Woody Mountain. So that, I'll get to that, but those drop bags are so crucial in making sure that you have enough for the rest of the race or for the rest until your next drop bag. There was no crew on this because it was the same course or the same area as Cocodona 250. They weren't allowing the 39-mile racers to have crew support. Granted, it's only 39 miles, so it's doable without crew support. So I had to rely on drop bags, making sure that I had everything in my drop bag. So that's what I did the morning of. Because I was staying out of town, I live in Phoenix, and the race was in Flagstaff. I just had to make sure that everything was in Flagstaff, and I got it ready the morning of. I do like to do it the morning of, just because I want to be it fresh in my mind and know exactly what it's going to look like. Granted, planning starts 2 months before a race. So that being said, I had all of this planned out prior to the morning of. I just had to merely put it in my drop bag. All right, so let's actually go through the race itself. So I woke up, had food, got my things ready. Body wise, so I decided, because I knew what the temperature was going to be. It was at like 40 degrees at race start, but it's higher elevation than I'm used to, and it's at 7,000 feet. It started at 7,000 feet elevation, altitude. So the sun is so much more intense when you're closer to it. So I knew that right off the bat, like, even though it's only 40 degrees, or it's only going to get up to 70 degrees, my body was going to get so warm from the sun itself. So I started with a tank top and shorts, knowing that I might be chilly for the first couple hours. I was willing to take that and not have to worry about taking off jackets or anything like that. So I started with tank top and a shorts, and my pack. So in my pack, I started off with 2 bottles of cis beta fuel. That's what my go-to. So it's 80 grams of carbs per 1 bottle. So I know I need about 1 bottle per hour. So that's how I paced this out. It was 1 bottle per hour of the cis beta fuel. From there, I also know I need to about have 1,200 milligrams of electrolytes of sodium per hour as well out on the course. So I made sure that I had all of what I needed in my pack to start with. So I had 2 bottles of cis, 1 bottle of water, my baggie of electrolytes. I just dumped a whole bunch into the bottle, or into a little baggie, and then put it in my pouch. So I know I had more than enough to last me the entire thing. Now, I've had it where I lost that baggie during a race, so I always have a backup, and I had the backup in my drop bag. So I had an extra bottle or extra baggie of electrolytes in my drop bag just in case. And then I had 3 cis packets. So it was going to be about 5-ish hours before I made it to my drop bag. So I decided that I needed 5 cis fuels, or cis beta fuels, to get me to that drop bag. Now, I also always have extra fuel with me. So if I go through it faster than I intended, or I'm not feeling it, I just take a gel, or I take Cliff Blocks, the energy chews. So I also had that in my pack to start with. One thing that so you have your fuel, you have your electrolytes, and then I always have a plastic baggie with paper towels, because you never know if you're gonna have GI issues anytime during the race. And it's totally normal to, like, once you start running, once you start warmed up, your digestion moves a little bit, and that's completely normal. So I always make sure that I have a baggie with paper towels in them, that just in case I have to dip off behind a bush, behind a tree somewhere, I am good to go on that front. So that was the preparation going into the actual start. So it was at Fort Tuthill, like I said, and crew could get dropped off to the starting line. So my husband was there. He helped me. I put my drop bag in the drop bag spot, making sure that you have your bib number, your name clearly labeled on the outside of the bag. And now I always get questions too about, like, what does a drop bag actually look like? Is there like a specific bag that you're supposed to use? Is it like, what does that even look like? And honestly, it can be anything. So this race, I used a drawstring bag from like a previous race that I had. Like, I think it was from Fargo Marathon. I don't know how many years ago. And I still had the bag, so I used that as my drop bag. I also like to use like bright colors in my drop bags, just in case, I've been to aid stations where the there are volunteers, but they're not necessarily helping you get your bag, and you have to find it yourself. So if it's something that can stand out, that will help you when you're like running in trying to find your bag. So it was a bright color, and I dropped that off at the start line. Then I decided I needed to warm up. So I had a plan. I was going to warm up. So I did a little jog around. I did some sprints, some strides to get me the brain muscle connection firing and going, just so by the time I was ready to start, it was going to be, my body was already like primed up and ready to go. So that's what I did. About 20 minutes before, I jogged around for about 5 minutes, did some sprints, went to the porta potty, and went back to the start line. So that was that. My plan was, because sometimes my plan was to start at the front of the pack, not because I thought I was going to win the race, but I wanted to avoid any sort of conga lines. Now, in this run itself, it was wide enough that like multiple people can be running next to each other most of the time, or at least in the first section. So we never got into a conga line experience, but I wanted to avoid that if possible. So I did start at the front, and I started, and I didn't start fast. I just started at my normal pace, and I'll get into that, like what that was going to look like. So that was all the way up to the start. Now I'm going to go by section of fueling, effort. We're going to look at my training peaks. I have that also up on my screen here. Now, if you're not familiar with what Training Peaks is, it's a platform where you can, all of your data from your watch gets loaded into this app, this website. And then it can give you a lot of different calculations for the training blocks, for the race itself, for the run itself. So I'll be looking at a little bit of that, and I will be explaining as I'm walking through that. So section by section. So the start at Fort Tuthill to Bow and Arrow. So let's walk through that. So that is this section here, from the start all the way up to this aid station number 1. It's 8.6 miles. So that section went really well. I did have to use that. You did utilize the paper towels. And I mean, honestly, I knew it was going to happen. That's just how my body works. And I have to stop on almost every one of my training runs. I just make sure that I'm like going by a gas station or something. So I knew it was going to happen. So I think at mile, where did it stop? Where did I stop? Right here. So where is that? So that's like 3 miles in, 3.5 miles in. Sounds about right. So I did a little pit stop, and then I kept going. But my pace stayed nice and steady. So how I determined, if you look over on this side here, I'm on Ultra Pacer. It gives me what my average pace is predicted to be and the time from that you're going to be running in that section. So that's where I was basing off of my fueling strategy. So that's a good rule to follow. So you want a pacing chart just so you can get the time between the stations, each of the aid stations, so you can actually plan out what your fuel is going to look like. So you're going to know how many minutes, and then from there you can deduce what you're going to need for that section. Now, it's good to be conservative, right? So it's really good to be conservative here, because if you end up going much slower than you had in your pace chart, you're not going to have enough fuel or water or electrolytes to get you to the next aid station, ideally. So that is where the pacing chart coming to play, and you want to be semi-conservative. It's good to have more fuel than you actually need. So it was my plan here. So with Ultra Pacer, it's super nice. You can put in grade adjusted paces. You can adjust for altitude, for temperature, for fatigue. So those are really nice tools to give you a good idea of what your pace is going to be. Now, if we actually look at my pacing, so if we're going to highlight here there we go. That is the first section. So my average pace was actually power speed pace, 10:46. So I predicted to be at 11:41 pace. So I was moving well, which was great. So I didn't quite finish both bottles. That's totally fine. But I just, added to what I needed. So when I got to that aid station at 8.4, 8.6-ish, I refilled my bottles. And I'll go into that in a second. But the actual pacing here, I knew that it's better to be conservative and better to be smart. Don't try to power up the hills. Don't try to pass people early. The race starts at the halfway point. So being so conservative. So I always go off of, I never once looked at my pace. Sometimes I would look at my heart rate, especially if I was like, I couldn't quite tell where I was at. But I always go off of feeling. Your body is so intelligent. And if you can train yourself to go off of feel in training, you're going to be able to utilize those feels on race day. So I was completely going off of feel. I don't like to look at my distance. I like to just zone in on the moment. So I never looked at the overall distance throughout the entire race. And I think that's what's helped me a ton over the course of my journey of ultra running is I do better and I feel better when I'm not concerned about how far I have gone or how far I still have to go. So never looked at my distance. I just know from one aid station to the next aid station how much it's going to be. So I knew it was about 8.5 miles, a little bit more than 8 miles, 8.6 miles. And that's all I was focusing on. I was thinking I have 8 miles to go and that's it. So I was being conservative. So RPE on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a walk, 10 being an all-out sprint, a 3 is cruising pace. So that's your all-day pace. You can keep going. You're not walking and you're not slowly jogging, but you're in this good, moderate, easy to moderate pace. So it's just cruising. That's what I kept telling myself during this race. Just cruise, just cruising. So if you ever feel like you're not just cruising, you're going too fast in an ultra. If you're in the beginning of the race, if you're at the very end, you can see the finish and give it all you got. But you just want to be cruisy pace. So I was cruisy, the whole time. So cruising was the name of the game for this one. So I just made sure that I was cruising. I wasn't pushing on the inclines. If I could run the incline, I did a little bit. But I never wanted to burn the engine hot this early in a race. So it was really conservative, just feeling good. So that's the first section. Second section is from Bow and Arrow to Sinclair. And that was going to be another 5.2 miles. 5.2 right there. Miles. Not a ton of climbing, still very cruisy. Over that 5 miles, it was going to be only 264 feet of climbing. So super flat. And it was also, again, just cruisy, right? So I knew it was going to be about an hour-ish to the next aid station. So I really only needed to have 1 bottle of cis, 1 bottle of water in my pack. So that's what I did. I actually, as I was running into that first aid station, I was getting out my empty bottle that I had already swapped out when I was running. I pulled that out and I was already unscrewing that while I'm running into the aid station. So I'm unscrewing my bottle. I'm getting out my cis packet. I'm asking the volunteers for help. So that's a big thing I was going to say for aid stations. So the volunteers are there for help. They want to be of use, and they love when they ask you for you ask them for assistance. So every time I go into an aid station, I like make known what I need and what I help, and people will help you. So don't be afraid of like to ask for that help. So when I run into an aid station, I'm already getting out my bottle. I'm unscrewing the top. I'm getting out my powder that I'm going to be putting in. And as I run up, I say, I need water. And then someone's there with a pitcher helping me put water in there. Sometimes there isn't someone with a pitcher of water and you have to like, use it from a spigot. Totally fine. A lot of them will come around and help you from behind the table if they're behind a table and fill that bottle up for you. So just voice that's a big thing. Just voice what you need. And they are going to be more than happy to help you. Now, because I already had planned out and had everything on me that I needed, I wasn't planning to use any of the aid station supplies unless it was an emergency situation. So all I needed to do is fill up a bottle of water and go. Right. So I want to make these as efficient as possible. Now, can you spend time? Can you talk? Can you visit? Sure. But that wasn't the goal of this race. I wanted to be as efficient and smooth through the aid stations as possible. So getting things out prior to getting to the aid station, super helpful. Voicing what you need. Every time I leave an aid station, I ask 2 questions, and it's, where do I go? Because I know other people and myself included, you just kind of get turned around when you're at the aid station. You're just thinking about what you need to do, and you're not really paying attention to like course markings or anything like that. So, and running the wrong direction. So I've run the wrong direction so many times where I have to they're like, wrong way, this way. So I always ask, where do I go? And they point me in the right direction. And then I always ask how far to the next aid station. Now, I usually know how far to the next aid station, but it's helpful for them to like give you a number, and then you can just be like, okay, I'm going 4.6 miles, or I need to go 7.8 miles, and that's all I need to think about. So that's where that comes in handy with not thinking about the overall distance, just the distance to the next aid station. This guy though, didn't know that it was only, 5 miles to the next aid station. He told me 8, which was fine because I already knew it was only like 5.5 miles. So I wasn't worried about it. But if you are, so that's a lesson though. Like if you are relying on them to tell you exactly how far you need to go and they give you the wrong number, or they don't actually know, that can be a little bit stressful and discombobulating. So always have an idea of what it is in your head, but I always ask anyway, because it's good to hear the number. It's good to be able to repeat that number in your head as you run. Now, I was like, okay, if it is 8 miles and I'm kind of off in my calculations, good thing I asked, because 1, I have an extra bottle of Cis that I prepared, and I have that if I need it. And it was a decent surprise that it showed up 5 miles and not 8 miles. So it was kind of nice that direction. So getting in from that section, going to the next section, getting into bow and arrow. So average pace. So I was already a good chunk of time ahead of schedule. So I got in at 1 hour and 33 minutes. I predicted to get in at 1 hour and 38 minutes. So I was 5 minutes ahead of schedule, which is awesome. This is great. And that's also why I like to have a little bit of conservative pacing, just because if you start to fall behind on your pacing, it can get you can get in this mental like, oh no, I'm not doing well. I need to speed up. Like you can get in this mental trap of like, oh crap. And it's just like a negative mindset to always feel like you have to catch up. So being conservative and being ahead of schedule, it just feels nice to be ahead of schedule. Granted, I didn't exactly know I was ahead of schedule. I know I was going a little bit faster than predicted, because I do have my GPS telling me my average pace. So it tells me every mile marker, it tells me my average pace, and I know overall what I wanted my average pace to be. So I think I had my average pace with all the climbing. At the very end, it was going to be an average pace of 13-minute miles. So I knew if I was under that, I'm great. Also, I knew that it was going to be like 11:48 for this first, several aid stations. So that was what, that's what I was like. If I'm under that, I'm golden. So I kept hearing good numbers. I was in the 10s for most of it. Then I started being in the 11s, and I was like hovering right around that 11-minute mile until the last section. So I knew I was in good shape for my pace chart, even though I didn't know exactly the amount of time for each of the, even though I didn't know the exact amount of time for the pacing or the exact amount of time that I was supposed to get into the aid stations, I knew I was still in good shape. So going from bow and arrow to Sinclair. Let's do bow and arrow to Sinclair. And so that is about right here. So yeah, average pace was 10:32 in that section. It took me a little bit less than an hour, 56 minutes. Let's see what my prediction was 59 minutes. So I'm already gaining another 3 minutes ahead. So a total of 8 minutes ahead of schedule at this point. And the aid station workers at this race was absolutely fantastic. They were so helpful. So I get into aid station, I have them help me pour my powder into my bottles. They're getting me water. I'm just making sure that like I have exactly what I need for the next section. So when I was asking which way to go and how many miles to the next one, and it was 8 miles to the next one. Yeah, 8 point something miles to the next one. I knew that I was going to need at least 2 cis bottles and a flask of water. So that's what I had. I had 2 cis bottles and a water. Here it says 2 waters. I didn't do that. I didn't realize that's what my plan was, but I didn't ever run out. So that was also something that you have to sometimes change your planning on in the moment, right? So if I knew I was going through water like crazy, I would have made sure that I had all 4 of my Hydro Flask bottles filled before I left the aid station. But because I knew I was only going to be out there for an hour and a half ish, I'm usually go through a half a liter per half hour or 1 liter per hour. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be out here for an hour and a half. I'm going to be good with 1.5 liters. And I was. So that was really good. Going into that last section. So if you look at some of these maps, I'm actually going through neighborhoods too. So that was something I was so happy that I had my GPX file loaded onto my watch. Now, it is a requirement for Aravaipa to have Aravaipa's requirement to have a GPX file loaded onto your watch. So if we look at what their GPX, there we go. If we look, it is mandatory for every runner of all distances and pacer to carry a GPS enabled device with the course profile downloaded. So I made sure that I had my watch, it downloaded on my watch, and I was able to see it while I was running. And there were times on this course, like, yes, there were course markings. It was good, but there were times where I was like, oh, I'm glad I have my GPX on here, or else I would not actually know where I'm going. So that is something that I do highly, highly recommend, even if it is not mandatory for every runner to have that. I would say do it anyway. It will save you some wrong turns. And another thing, so if you go off course, okay, so course, cutting or deviating from the course will result in disqualification. If a runner goes off course, they must retrace back to the last known marker and continue on the course from there. So will result in disqualification. A time penalty may be issued at the race director's discretion for inadvertent deviations from the course. So that's also right there. Like if you cut the course, if you go off course and come back on course at a different spot on the course, you are required to go back to where you deviated from the course and continue on from where you came off. So you always have to go back. And that's it, honestly, if you figure that out, it's an honor system, right? So like no one's out there like, pointing a finger at you and telling you like, you missed a spot, you have to go back, or else. Like it's an honor system, right? No one's out there harping on you or watching your every move. Like that is part of what trail running it is an honor system when you're out there and making sure that you aren't cheating. That goes with pacers. So a lot of times there's no pacers in the 39, but pacers like muling is one thing that a lot of times pacers aren't allowed to do. So they're not allowed to carry things for their runner. And if you are a pacer and you're handing things from your pack over to the runner, that could get them disqualified. Even if it's something they could use or need, it would get them disqualified if they take any sort of assistance from you other than like telling them to eat and pacing them and keeping them moving or waking them up after they sleep, those types of things. That's what a pacer's there for, not for giving them your water, giving them your fuel, or giving you a headlamp. If their headlamp goes out, you can't give them your headlamp, right? So it is an honor system out there, and we do want to keep the integrity of the sport, which is something I'm going to come up to in a second as well. But going back to that section, it was nice and cruisy. There wasn't a lot of elevation change with that one either. So that was really nice. Super cruisy. Next section, to get to the Woody Mountain Aid Station. This is where the drop bag was going to be. So it's the last section before the drop bag where I can like re-up on my fuel, on my supplies. I'll go into what exactly was in my drop bag and where I made a mistake. So I'm going to go over like what I learned, what went well, what I made mistakes on because that's where, if I was going to say I made a mistake, this is where the mistake would have happened. So that was really nice to be able to follow my GPX, going back to the GPX, following my GPX, because we did have to run through neighborhood, and that neighborhood section, I was really hoping that I was still on course because I wasn't actually sure if I was. And then I had to go under. So there's like this neighborhood section. I had to go under a bridge and you had to stop at a stoplight to like cross the road. So thankfully those walk signs were actually walk signs when I got to those intersections. Thank goodness. So I didn't actually have to stop. But I'm sure other people did have to stop at those intersections to like let traffic go, because those were some major intersections there. But yeah, got back on the course, got it to that second aid station, filled up my stuff, asked the distance, and then kept going. So I think the only thing I did take from the aid station on that one was a piece of watermelon. The watermelon was like super refreshing. So, and I know that watermelon has a really good amount of sugars. So I was like, no, bonus calories, bonus sugar, bonus energy. So I had a piece of watermelon and I was good to go. So I went through the next section, and there's a little bit more climbing in this one. So little bit more climbing. There's 500 feet of climbing, 400 feet of descent. So it's still very cruisy, still very runnable. The trail sections did get a little chunky there, so you have to like step over rocks. But I think Flagstaff running in comparison to Phoenix running is a little bit more mild. I feel like there's a lot more of like a tree cover and a lot more pine needles, so it's a little bit softer. There's more dirt rather than, just mountainous rocks. So that was really nice. I feel like there were times where I can just run over the top of the rocks and I didn't have to like deviate around boulders or anything like that. So that was really nice. There was a section of forest trail or forest road, nice straight section of forest road. And I could see there are two women runners in front of me that I could see. And I was like, I'm going to chase them down. This is happening. So I actually in this section, I did pass one female, and then she ended up passing me again. But what I was thinking and what I was listening for was her breathing, right? So I was like, how hard is she breathing? How hard is she pushing? Is she going to be able to maintain this until the rest of the race? I mean, we were still less than halfway into the race. There's still a long time for me to blow up, for her to blow up. So I was kind of just listening to her breathing, running my own race. So making sure that I stayed cruisy and I wasn't trying to push. I wasn't trying to get like competitive at that time. But so I let her pass me again because I was like, I'm not going to try to keep up with her. It's not something that I want to do right now. So I let her pass on that aid station or in that section. And so she was still in front of me for that section coming in to the Woody Mountain aid station, where the drop bag was at. So the drop bag was at mile 22.8. And I knew that the last section was going to be 11 miles. So I knew I needed to have enough to get me from 22.8, the 4.6 miles or 4.2 miles until the next aid station. So I knew I only needed one bottle of Cis, one bottle of water, but I needed enough to get me to the finish line. So in my drop bag, I had what I needed plus a little extra. So I had 3 packs of Cis, I had 4 Go gels, and I was going to put Tylenol in there just in case, but I didn't have any in there, but good thing I didn't need it. So I didn't have Tylenol in there, but I did have lube. I had sunscreen. I had ketone IQ shots that I ended up not taking, which was out of mere efficiency. So this is one thing that I would suggest is making sure that you go through a checklist. So a lot of times I do have in my drop bags, like what to do at the aid station, what to leave with. So I make sure I go through this little checklist on a little note card that's in a Ziploc bag. So just in case it gets rained on, it doesn't, like the ink doesn't bleed, right? So it's a little Post-it note. This is what I suggest is in your every drop bag is have a Post-it note and have a little to-do list on each of the, on what to do when you get in and what to have with you as you take off. I didn't have one of those notes. I didn't plan that, but I do suggest doing that for this reason. So as I was running into the aid station, I was like, oh my gosh, especially on my left side, it's always my left side, where the skin from my underarm meets my side, it rubs. It's not my vest, it's not my clothes, it's actually like skin on skin rubbing from, just like the bottom of my arm to my side, it just rubs. So I, in the past, have used KT tape to put over that section. Sometimes that's worked. Sometimes it just rolls up and comes off and I just doesn't work at all. But what does work, if I stay up on it, putting on Vaseline. So I use Vaseline a lot of times as my lubes. So I put on Vaseline underneath my arm, on my side, and then it should be good for a while. Now, I did have Vaseline in my drop bag for this exact reason. But when I got into that aid station at Woody Mountain, that girl that was in front of me was there and I wanted to get out in front of her. So I was trying to be as efficient as possible. So I did plan on having 3 minutes at this aid station. I think each of my aid station in and out were less than 90 seconds. All of them were less than 90 seconds. So I didn't put on lube. And as I was running away, I was just like, oh crap, this is going to be uncomfortable, but it's just skin. So that is, yeah, I would say it's about the size of bigger than a golf ball size. I don't know, tennis ball size, no, smaller than a tennis ball, bigger than a golf ball size area of like just rubbed raw. Like it's ugly. It hurts. It's keeping me up at night, actually. But I ran away and I was like, oh crap, I forgot my lube. Shoot. But it's just skin, just keep pushing through. So I asked those aid station workers were fantastic. They got me my bag for me. They were helping me fill up my water bottles. I was just asking, just for help, and they were telling me what they have at the aid station, and I said no, but at the same time it was so nice to have that help in that section. So in the first section, we were in the same area as the 250 runners. So we were passing 250 runners, Cocodona 250 runners in that first section. And then from section 2 to the finish line, we were back on track with the 125, Sedona Canyon's 125 runners. So we were passing those runners, and oh my God, it's so amazing to see those runners out there and just giving them kudos as you're passing. It's just a huge like uplifter for you. So it's actually scientifically proven that like if you're giving someone encouragement and you're like cheering someone on, it gives you that same boost of energy that you're giving them. So it is selfish, but at the same time, it is helping them like continue, just giving them encouragement. So every time I'm passing people, I am just telling them how solid they look, how great they're moving, that you're amazing, you're my inspiration, all of the things just to keep them moving forward because they are also in the last section of their race, So I was just giving them all the encouragement. So we were all the way through the second aid station, all the way to the finish line, giving them such good encouragement. Just giving them encouragement. So this, from the 22 point, it's the Woody Mountain aid station where the drop bag was. I just made sure that I had what I needed to get to the finish line. So in total, I had 4 bottles that I could have with water. So that's going to be like 500 milliliters per bottle. So that would be about 2 liters of water / fueling, hydration, or the beta fuels, the liquid carbs. So I had 2 liters that I knew I was going to have from the last aid station to the end. So I did actually get out of that last aid stations before the other girl. And I wish I would have known her name or her bib number. I didn't look. I think I looked, but then I forgot. Like I forgot what it was. But I did look. But yeah, so I got out. She came in about 3 to 4 minutes ahead of me. And then I left before her. So I wanted to be as efficient as possible. I was utilizing those volunteers as much as possible. So I can't emphasize that enough, is just using those aid station volunteers. So I then I sprayed some sunscreen on before leaving that aid station because I am fair skinned and I get sunburnt really easily. So I used some sunscreen on the back of my neck and my shoulders before taking off again. So because we were passing the 125 runners, one of the pacers of those runners, she's like, you're the fifth female, you're the top 5. And I was like, I in my mind had an idea that I was up there, but I didn't know where exactly I was. So that was really encouraging. I was like, I want to stay in the top 5. This is amazing. So when I saw that girl still in the aid station, a fire was lit. I was like, I am going. Like, I'm going to get in and out. I want to be as intimidating as possible. I wasn't like aggressive, right? But I was like, I want to be in and out and efficient, and I just want to go. And I was. So I left that aid station knowing that I only had 4.5 miles ish to go. So I had one bottle each. This section, actually, there was going through neighborhoods. So, and some bike path. So it was a difference between going from like the forest roads and the trails to running through a neighborhood. However, it was so nice. Some of the people knew that the race was going on, and they were outside with their cowbells and they were cheering you on as they're running by their house. So that was really cool, and that was really fun. So went through a section of bike path, went through a section of neighborhoods, and then made it to that last aid station. Now at this point, let's see, where was I along the course? So I was. Oh, this is right. So when they had that set up, maybe I just didn't run close enough. So I saw it kind of in the distance, like the tracking thing, but I must not have run. I mean, I thought I was pretty close, but maybe I wasn't close enough. I didn't get close enough to the tracking device. So it didn't pick me up. But I'll have a good idea if I go to my Training Peaks. So I'll have a good idea. So that was. This is why Training Peaks is so awesome. So yeah, so right around there. Yep, right there. That was 5 hours. That was 5 hours and 4 minutes in. So I was 5 hours and 4 minutes in from the start, which was at 7 a.m. So I was there at 12:05 in that last section. So what was my predicted time of arrival? My predicted time of arrival was 12:25. So I was still 20 minutes ahead of schedule coming into that last aid station, the last push before the finish line. So I was still in good shape at that point. So the electrolytes, I haven't talked about the electrolytes, but I only talked about the fuel. So the electrolytes, I like I said before, the packets. So I know I need around 1,200 milligrams of sodium per hour. That's just me and what I've dialed in. So what I like to do is doing 2 of these capsules. I use Redmond Relight as my little capsules, how I get electrolytes in. So I use 2 of these 400 milligram of sodium capsules on the top of the hour. And at the half hour point, I take 1. Now I messed up here. So I was not staying on top of my electrolytes. I was taking them willy-nilly, and I was taking them when I felt like I needed them. And I was like, oh crap, it's been 45 minutes. I should probably take some more. And I didn't stay on top of that. So that is a big thing, a big lesson that I learned. It was like, I do need to stay on it a little bit more, and I need to make sure that I'm getting in my electrolytes, because in this last section, my legs did start cramping. So I first started feeling it on the top of my quad, right on top of my, like above my knees, like the quads that are like connected and right above my knees. I started feeling the cramping feeling, like they weren't completely seized up, but at the same time they were aching, like they weren't firing properly. And so I was taking in extra electrolytes, and I wouldn't take in like more than I normally would at a time. So I would still take in two of the capsules with water, and then within 15 minutes, it felt a lot better. And then about 15 minutes later, I would start cramping again. And so I took in more of the electrolytes capsules. Every time I felt cramps come on, I was like, I need to take more. I'm obviously not taking enough. And then it would go away. So I would start feeling better. So that is a big thing that a lesson takeaway from this one is making sure that I'm staying up on my electrolytes early in the race so it doesn't hit me late in a race. So the muscles that were mostly affected, it was mostly on the climbing. Once I got to flat or downhill areas, so the section here, so this section right here from if you're listening to this, it's like just after the aid station. That last aid station, there is there's like a 400-foot climb. And it's like forest road. So it's not trail, it's not technical, but it was just like pretty steep road. I think the steepest grade of this entire race was 14.9%. And this is where it was. And this is where I started cramping. So the tops of my knees, on my quads, tops of my knees, and then the inner thighs. So they are your adductors on the inner thighs. And they were acting as my fourth hamstring. So that's where I was like, you're pushing down on the ground. And it was, they were cramping. They were getting super tight. I was feeling it like up in my groin. And so that was, really challenging to get through because it was painful. And thankfully they never actually seized that I couldn't move my leg. They were just very uncomfortable, but I just kept pushing through. So the climbing is where I was pushing the most, and that's where the cramping was happening. So I was making sure I was taking in electrolytes and I was taking in water at the same time. Now I had 4 bottles of fluid. So I had the 2 bottles of cyst, 2 bottles of water. I ran out of all of that 45 minutes before the end of the race. So that was really rough. So I knew I was coming down to the very, very last bit. And so I knew I was still going to need to take in electrolytes because I was cramping. So I needed to have water or fluid of some sort to take those capsules in. So I had tiny sips that I would try to swallow my electrolyte capsules with, and it was rough. I'm not gonna lie, it was not ideal. I underestimated the amount of fluid that I needed for that last section. Usually, 2 liters per 2 hours was gonna be plenty. But I was going a little bit slower than anticipated because of the cramping. And that last section was hard. It was hard. Now I'm going to go back to the GPX because in this last section, so once you get to the top, after after the first climb, there is a section here. So right at that spot, right there. Let's go into that. So then if you see at the top of my screen here, I'm looking at a side profile where you can see the peaks and valleys of what the climbing and descent looks like. And right at this junction here at the trailhead, it goes down and then it goes way back up. So at that junction, it wasn't marked well. It was marked, but it was such like it was a side trail. We were on a main trail and you had to dip off to the side. It was marked and it was on the GPX. But if you didn't have a GPX and you weren't focused on the markings, you weren't going to see this. So the only reason why I did see it was because I saw the turn on my GPX, on my watch file. So I do the dip down and come back up. Now, when you come back up, you meet up with I'm going to zoom in on this part. So I'm going to just zoom in on the trail map here. So if you see right on this area, there's a junction where you have to dip off and come and do this little, it almost looks like a horse head or like a dog head or a cat side profile. But so I did this section and then I was coming back up to where so you're going from here up to here, right? So if you look at that trail, I did this section and then I was coming up to this convergence of the trails again, and two more runners were coming out from the side from that trail. And I recognized the girl from the aid station. And I was like, hey, I think you guys missed, there's two girls, two ladies, two women. I think you guys missed a section of the trail. Like, I think you missed a turnoff there. And one of the girls was like, oh crap, we did. She turned around to retrace her steps, like the rules say, to go back to that section. And she did. She went back to that section, she found it, and she kept going and followed the course markings from there. However, the other girl said, no, I was following the course markings. I'm good to go. I'm just following the course markings. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure. Like, do you have the GPX file, downloaded on your watch or on your phone? And she said, no, I'm just following course markings. And then she kept going. So I don't know what is going to happen with that. But I think the race directors do have an idea of like that did happen. So I don't know what is going to happen. But I was kind of frustrated, right? Because she is cutting the course and she's not following the course, and the rules say you're going to get disqualified. So again, the biggest thing is like the integrity of the races, like no cutting courses. And if you go off course and you find out you go off course, you have to go back to where you went off course and continue on from there. So I'm not going to call out the person. But I do hope that the race directors and the company who puts it on does follow up with that, because that isn't the type of integrity that we need in trail running, especially if we're at the top of the field and you're cutting the course and you find out you're cutting the course and still don't go back and retrace your steps and find out where you went wrong. Yeah, that's just not what this sport's about, right? So, yeah, continuing on from there. So kept running. She was actually in front of me. And I let her go. I was like, you know what? I'm still going to run my race. I'm not going to let this like affect me. So I was just running my race, and I think one of the downhill portions, I ended up passing her again, and it was fine. But she did come in, the person after me. So I don't know what's gonna happen along those lines, but because I did run out of water in the last section. What my goal was for the last downhill section, it was going to be the last 5 miles of the race. I was going to push it. I was going to go fast. I was going to go hard. I was going to go at like a steady state effort, like an RP 6. Yeah, I was going to go at like an RPE 5.6. On a scale from 1 to 10, 2, 3 being like cruisy, feeling great. And then 5-ish is like you're pushing a little bit. Like you're still very aerobic. You're still using your breath. Your legs aren't burning from that lactic acid buildup or the lactate buildup. But you are still, breathing heavily. So that was going to be the goal for the last section, but I was already cramping. I was already overheated. I didn't have enough water. I was dehydrated. And so I just cruised it. To the end. I couldn't push. If I would have pushed, I feel like I probably would have at least needed to start walking because I just didn't have it in me. But I just kept cruisy until I was downtown Flagstaff, and I was like getting all the vibes from all the people who were on the sidewalks cheering and cheering you on and saying all the nice things. So once I hit that, I was like, boom, I'm ready to go. So if we bring up my training peaks, we can see here that let's zoom in on the downhill section. We're going to zoom. So I was staying nice and cruisy. I did try to stop at like a park to see if there was water, but there was no water. But I think that's where that is. And then someone was like, there's only a mile left. So I cruised it. So once I got downtown, I think my top speed there was like 7:35, 7:14, something like that. So that was really fun. That was really encouraging. And I go around that corner and I see the finish line and it feels so good. My husband's there recording and I, do my finish line hop and it felt so amazing. It really did. I executed the race exactly how I wanted to, minus some mishaps with the electrolytes early on, the cramping in the last section. I mean, now I'm saying all the things that didn't go right, but overall the execution was fantastic. I never pushed where I wasn't supposed to push. I never, let the race itself get out of control, like my competition or like just like feeling like I had more in me than I was giving. I knew I needed to play it smart, and I did. And overall, the race went really well. Super happy with how everything transpired. The 4th overall place was phenomenal. I mean, the competition was incredible. There were really strong, really fast women running on that course, and just to be in that top 5 spot was walking away with top 5 is amazing, and it feels really good. And it's all about putting in the work and being smart, planning ahead. Those are the big takeaways: is planning, training, executing, running your own race. That is one of the 2 things that I kept saying is be cruisy, just cruisy. And the second thing I was saying was run my own race. So I let people pass me, and I just, ran in the moment, right? So running your own race, when those people pass you, when those people pass me, I always like turn internally to myself, because I could start pushing and I could pass them again. Absolutely. That's within my wheelhouse. But at the same time, would that be long term? They could be blowing up later on. You never know. They could roll an ankle. They could not be feeling themselves how they should be feeling themselves. They could have something go wrong. You don't know. So you just need to stay in your moment, stay in your own race, and just know that what you've done up to this point is all worth it, and it will pay off. And I think I showed that coming in 4th place with letting people pass, but being as efficient and as efficient as possible when it comes to aid stations. So that is overall Flagstaff Crest 39. The race itself was gorgeous. The day was gorgeous. The staff was amazing. The volunteers were even better. I got a massage afterwards at some volunteer there. She was actually pacing one of her friends later on that day, but she was still there giving massages to people, dirty, nasty, gross people. So she was a trooper, and she was awesome. Something I didn't mention is I tripped multiple times. And if you're still listening to this, I applaud you. Thank you so much. You are a true rock star as well, just getting through this entire race and taking the nuggets where you can get them. But I tripped, like I fell 7 times, and 3 of those times were within like 5 minutes of each other. Like I was just like laughing every time I got up. I was just laughing. I had like bloody palms, and hit the rocks really hard with my knee. If you've been following along on Instagram at all, you know that about a week and a half ago, I fell and hit my knee really hard, like full force on a rock on my knee. And instantly it swelled up like there was a golf ball on the top of my kneecap. Couldn't bend my knee, and I had to like straight leg, peg leg it back to my car. I was only 10 minutes into my run, and it took me 40 minutes to get to my car. So that's how efficient I was moving. So I've been going to a physical therapist and getting some laser treatments, and I was just hoping that it wasn't going to flare up in this. And I landed on my knee in that last section, and it started swelling again. But I just had to run it off, knowing that I only had less than 10 miles to go. Like, just needed to keep going. So that is what I did, and it is still a little bit sore today. It hurts to bend a bit. Obviously, it feels like a bruise too. So like kneeling down on my knees to pet my dogs, that hurts. I also have, going into this one, I had a high hamstring strain. So on the left side, where the hamstring on your glute attaches to like the underside of your butt, that is where I have a hamstring strain. And hamstrings can take quite a bit to heal. But as long as it wasn't escalating more and more, if it wasn't getting worse during the race, I wasn't going to be concerned about it. And it wasn't getting worse. But every time I would trip and catch myself, like I could feel that extra strain on that muscle. And that didn't feel good. So the following day, the race was on Friday, on Saturday, it was painful. It would hurt to walk around. It hurt to exist. Today, two days after the race, not painful. So it doesn't hurt nearly as like it did it before. I'm doing some activation and just trying to like get those muscles to fire, trying to get it heal. So that's where I'm at with the injuries from the race or before the race. But yeah, I did fall about 7 times. Good face plants. It wasn't just like tripping. It was like falling and hands on the ground and belly on the ground, all the things. So yeah, it's just part of racing, and it's part of the fun. And the bloody hand made me feel badass, maybe more badass than I actually was. But that's where we're out there. And every time I would trip, I would just be like, this is my adult playground. Like, I would just laugh it off and keep running. Like, I'm out here to play. So that is Flagstaff Crest in a nutshell. And I was so happy to be able to do this race and be a part of the Cocodona series of runs. So if you don't know what the Cocodona series of runs are, it's Sedona 250, or excuse me, Cocodona 250, and then it's Sedona Canyons 125, Mingus Traverse 79, and then it's Flagstaff Crest 39. This year, the Flagstaff Crest is the first time this year, because it used to be Eldon's Crest, the last section of the 250 race, but there were permitting issues, and they weren't allowed to have that many people on the course, all the things. So they changed the route for this year, and that's why it's called Flagstaff Crest 39. And it was beautiful. It was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed this course, and I was just happy to be out in that environment and with those other runners doing those super long distances. Kudos. So yeah, this was a really fun race, and I would recommend. Aravaipa puts on very, very good races. They have very good support, and it's very organized. If there ever is anything that comes up, they address it. And they make it better for the next time or the next race that they're putting on. So highly recommend this one. And I will be doing a breakdown of how I put together these pace sheets. So I also have the pace on like an Excel spreadsheet as well. So I have the steepest grade and the predicted temps and the average pace and all the things. If there's a cutoff, where there's crews allowed, where there's drop bags, just so you have it all in one place. But so I use a combination of a Google spreadsheet at the same time as UltraPacer. And I'll be going into how to do the race planning for yourself, and how you can I'm going to show you how you're going to be able to plan it for your own races. And I suggest doing that with ample amount of time to prepare, right? So when you're training for these long races, you want to be very race specific. So you want to do a lot of what your training should look like should be very similar to what the race elevation profile is, right? So if you know there's going to be a lot of runnable sections, you should do a lot of runnable training. If there's a lot of climbing, you should do a lot of climbing in the same, atmosphere, the same difficulty. Let's say the climbing, like this climb was really steep and it was like 14% grade. But if I've never done 14% grade, that was going to feel very, very hard, right? So you just have to make sure that the training is very niched down to what the run is actually going to look like. And then, so that's why I suggest you plan it out and have it at least the course planned out, and know what each section is going to look like so you can plan your training accordingly. And yeah, I'll just go into all the details of like how you can utilize UltraPacer, how you can utilize a spreadsheet, how you can utilize ChatGPT to help you pull information from the race websites and other race reports and all the things into one localized place, so you can come in and know what to plug into UltraPacer, because UltraPacer is a very manual. You do the GPX, but then it's a very manual thing where you have to sometimes put in your own aid stations and the types of terrain you're going to be running on, so it can change the pacing. And so I'll go through all of that, but that's going to be a different video. But this is Flagstaff Crest 39, and that is all of the race itself. Beautiful course, beautiful day. One more video I'm going to be doing on Flagstaff Crest. One more video I'm going to be doing for this topic, Flagstaff Crest 39. I'm going to be doing a Q&A. So if you haven't already, go to my Instagram, and one of my posts says Flagstaff Crest 39 Q&A. Leave your questions in the comments. I'm going to be doing that in the next few days. Let those comments accumulate, and I'll be answering your questions from Instagram. So thank you for listening. If you're this far into this race recap, you are fantastic, and you are why I do this, and you are why I'm here. Reach out if you are in thinking about hiring a coach. If you had a coach, if you need a coach, first-time coach, we are here to help you no matter what the distance that you're going for. We have 200-mile finishes. We have 5K finishes and everywhere in between. So feel free to reach out to us. You can go to my Instagram, sarah.j.june, and either send me a message or go straight to the link in my bio, and you can fill out something there, follow along, or fill out the coaching link there, follow along with me. I'll also put a link to the coaching application in the bio here. So thanks again for listening, and keep running.